going to hit the go live button now. So 3, 2, 1, you're live.
Okay, thank you everybody for joining Glasgow 2024 Worldcon. This is the 1-star review panel. We are super excited to talk about 1-star reviews and what they can do for us as readers, and a little bit about what they do for us as authors, but mainly just to celebrate the joys of the 1-star review. And we're going to have some games and a lot of good conversations. So I just want to go over, this is all Glasgow 2024 events. We would ask that you behave yourself. Please be polite to your fellow webinar attendees. Also, if you're participating via YouTube in the YouTube chat, please just basically don't be a bad person. I'm going to say that. I'm going to keep it clean for at least the first few minutes, and we might devolve into profanity later. But so just have a good time and be nice and be polite to each other, and don't personally insult anybody in any way. I also want to direct you to glasgow2024.org, where you can volunteer and find out more about our events, and we'll have more on that later. And I also want to say that if you're participating in the webinar and you want to ask a question, please use the Q&A portion, and we'll be answering your questions later in the program. So I want to get things started, and I want to ask our panelists to introduce themselves, and I'm going to start with Allan Batchelder.
Hi, yes, I'm Allan Batchelder, and I'm the author of the 5-book Immortal Treachery series of dark fantasy, grimdark. I don't know quite what the classification is. And most recently, This Thing of Darkness, about Shakespeare's adventures in the New World.
Awesome. Okay, how about Quenby? You go ahead.
Hi, I'm Quenby Olson. I'm the author of the Miss Percy Guide series, which is a cozy fantasy, historical fantasy that follows a spinster in Regency England inheriting a dragon egg and all of the adventures that come after that.
Steve, go ahead.
I'm Steve McHugh. I'm the author of 21, I think, 22 now, books, 2 of which have been published, I think, this year. Most of which are urban fantasy, but and that's the Helicon Chronicles, but there's also a science fiction book called Black Coat and a historical fantasy called No Gods, Only Monsters.
All right. J E?
Hi, I'm J E Hannaford, and I'm the author of the folklore fantasy Duology, The Skin and the Pact, and the new Aulirean Gates trilogy, which is Gates of Hope, is the new one that's just out.
Awesome. And I'm A.M. Justice, and I'm the author of the Wern Saga, which is a science fantasy duology. So I am thrilled to talk to all of you today. We're all here to share our sometimes joy, sometimes sorrows with 1-star reviews. And I wanted to ask the panelists to each share a favorite 1-star review of yours. It could be of your own book or a book that you love, but you enjoy the 1-star reviews, reading them. So does anybody want to volunteer, or shall I point at someone to go first? I'm going to point. Steve, you made a motion, so you're going to go first.
That's fine. My favorite ever 1-star review is for my first ever book, which is called Crimes Against Magic, and it's a very short review, and it's 2 words, and it says mindless badassery.
That sounds like a good review.
That sounds like a good review.
I asked my publisher if I could put it on the book, and they said no, and I was insane for suggesting it. And but yeah, no, it says exactly what it is. Yeah, it's brilliant. And apparently that person thought that was a bad thing, but I loved it. So yeah.
That sounds like the review that you could sum up the entire shoot. I sometimes have these senior moments. I'm having one right now. movie series about they're driving the cars and they
Fast and
crash.
Furious.
Fast and Furious.
Yes, thank you. It sounds like the entire Fast and Furious franchise is mindless
Yeah.
badassery. So,
It's supposed to be a fun book, and it was a fun book. And most people haven't, but this person did not like the fact that it was a
That it was
mindless
fun.
badassery.
if you like
It's
fun, if you don't like fun, don't read this book.
Yeah, no, if you don't like fun, this is not the book for you.
I feel like intellectual badassery would be hard to pull off.
Yeah, that would be very difficult.
Yes.
And a
yes,
very different kind of book.
indeed. I don't know. Maybe there are some out there. Like coming up, we're gonna have some reviews. There are certain fantasies out there that are very highbrow, and so possibly some of those might be intellectual badassery. But anyway, Alan, how about you? Do you have a favorite?
I mean, it's hard to have a favorite. I've only got two, but the very first one I got was telling for me because the person gave up in the first chapter, but they wrote, "It sucks. Please try another storyline. The story does not live up to the chapter. The badass killed 50 men, but 4 guys kick his ass. Really? Then he go back to same person who took his hands and feet. Stop reading right there. Sorry." I think they were overmatched. Whoever wrote this review. Maybe Dr. Seuss would have been a little more appropriate, a little easier to grasp.
Yes. All right. Jay, you mentioned you don't have any 1 stars of your books yet, but do you have a favorite?
It will come, I'm quite sure. I do actually. There's a lovely review for. I know that there's a certain person in the background here who will gasp in horror at this. But Lord of the Rings isn't necessarily my go-to for older fantasy, but I did like Gormenghast. And there is a review I have seen for Gormenghast that says 1 star, only because the book is too heavy to read in bed, and I just couldn't continue reading it.
Okay.
Brilliant.
Dude, that's what Kindles are for.
It's too heavy.
It's heavy.
It's just too heavy. Although I will say I was reading on my iPad once and I dozed off and my iPad like fell on my face and it really hurt.
Physical books in bed aren't good, are they? But Kindle, just use a Kindle. Wouldn't fancy dropping many of the Robert Jordan books on my face either.
No, there's
No,
not.
my Kindle fell and broke my glasses once. So
there are dangers from Kindles too.
yes.
Quenby, do you have a favorite?
I have a favorite. I'm not going to mention any of my own 1-star reviews, just because I didn't feel like going back at them right now while I'm writing the 3rd book. But I have one. I have one that I've looked back at. It's for Pride and Prejudice, which is a favorite book of mine. And it's a 1-star review that I've looked back at multiple times over the years whenever I remind myself that, even very classic, beloved books can get terrible reviews. And it's an essay, this 1-star review. You can go and find it on Amazon. This is an essay that someone wrote. And the last paragraph, I go back to it. I'm going to try and read it quickly because it is long. All in all, I cannot say I enjoyed this novel beyond the witticisms of Mr. Bennet. I found myself bored, distant, and unsympathetic, waiting for the next punch of subtle wit with such pretension that the novel was painful to finish. There was more plot and characterization in the denouement than the whole of the novel. I can only be glad that the device of the novel advanced itself beyond Austen's limited and childish writing, although certainly my mother, being like many older women always searching for the lost romance of her youth, reads these kinds of novels like she eats M&Ms. I, for one, do not care to waste my time on such shallow, girlish, in the most sexist interpretation of the term, literature, but prefer instead for my characters to show me something new, to give me greater insight into the complexity of the mind and world. Instead, Austen has simplified the mind and dulled the world to the point of being accessible to even the most girl will enjoy it, or a person who wishes to recapture or has never ventured beyond that period of life. But I, for one, did not.
Wow,
Wow.
that's a hard act to follow. So,
Takes a lot of hatred, takes a lot of hatred to fire
Yeah.
that much.
And that's just one part of it. I mean, it's like 7 or 8 paragraphs like that. Like, just, I'm trying to imagine writing that much, that long for a book that you disliked with such vehemence.
I would have given up a lot earlier in the book if I'd hated it that much. I wouldn't have made it to the end. I'd have been like, chapter 1, this is rubbish. And then I'm done now. Thanks.
Yeah,
I'm
this
done.
person made
Yeah.
it to the end and made notes of hatred all the way through by the sounds of it.
Like, annotated the whole way through the hatred, or he, the hatred of this book. Yeah.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because I have a review of my first book, A Wizard's Forge, that begins, I just spent the last 10 minutes combing through all the pages of notes I have, trying to find some notation that will show you what hell I went through trying to read this book. Then there's roughly 1,000 words follows that first sentence.
Wow.
So, and then, then the person finishes up with, I will never read this series or author again. I'm finally free to read something entertaining and not this fucking thing.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Well, just for the audience out there,
It's
I've
like,
read your book.
whoa.
I've read that book. I've read your book, and I totally disagree. I think I told you.
Thank you, Alan.
I think I told you he's got one of the most complex villains. Well, he's not really a villain, as you pointed out, but one of the most complex characters I've ever read. So that's a pretty awesome achievement.
Well, it's funny. That was one that came out like while the book was still in ARC form, so it hadn't even been released, and it was like, oh my god,
wow.
But at the same time, I reading the details of what she disliked about it, it was like, it was one where it was like, okay, this just is not the book for this person. But it was similar to the Jane Austen reader, the Pride and Prejudice reader, who did finish the entire thing, and then like, which was for her like, like walking through hell or something. And it's like, why did you just, if you hated it that much, why did you stick with it? That's the thing that like baffling.
Life is too short to continue reading books you hate. Like,
Yeah.
just go, you know what? I'm going to read something else instead.
This one's not for me.
Exactly.
Like, if I don't like a film, I don't go, you know what, there's 2 hours left of this, and I'm going to make it, damn it. I'm going to watch the rest of this.
Yeah.
Just go, this
I
is
might
rubbish,
if I've got a
and
big
switch it
bucket of popcorn, but
off. At the cinema, yeah.
Yeah.
But,
Or a meal, right? Would
Or-
you finish a meal you hated?
No.
It's very strange that someone would read something they hate and then be venomous about it and angry that they've wasted their time.
When in case of films, there have been times where actually, my husband and I think one of my favorite moments from our marriage is walking out of a film that we both hated and then just like ranting about it for the next half an hour and making fun of it. And, so I actually, it's you can love to hate something. But it was just like, sometimes when people like really just like viscerally hate something to a degree, it's like, why, put your energy into that? So you just must be a sad person. So
That's
sorry.
time they're not getting back.
Yeah, exactly. Time you're not getting back. Anyway, so I'm gonna read some. I'm gonna do this throughout the session, but I'm gonna read I'm gonna read a review, and you guys will. I'm gonna ask you if it's a real review or a fake review, and then I'm gonna ask you if it is. Hang on, I've got a technical difficulty here. I'm going to ask you if it's a real review or a fake review, and then I'm going to ask if it is a real book or a fake book, because we've got both kinds. So, all right. So here's the first one. And oh, you know what? Talk among yourselves for 1 second, because I've got to do something. We have an emergency. It has to be dealt with. Okay. All right. We're continuing now. Okay, here we go. This book was a slog. I promised someone I would read it because it's their favorite book, but honestly, each chapter, each sentence, each word made me feel like Sisyphus, pushing a rock up the hill of every page only to slide back down as I began the next. I may have to reconsider my friendship with the person who recommended it. Real
I'm
or
going to say
fake?
that's real.
Real.
I'm going to say that's real.
Real.
I'm
I
going to say
guarantee-
it's real.
Yeah, I think
That
they
is
waited their
actually a
whole
fake
life.
review.
Oh no!
What?
But we have reviews that are similar that are real. That is a fake review. So now I want you to name the book. Name the book that would be. It could be name the book that it might fit for a real book, or give us a fake name for a book that would fit that review.
I was, if it hadn't been for this as their favorite book, I'd have said kind of like, what is it? Book 7 of the Wheel of Time?
Is it any genre of literature? or are we
Sorry.
talking-
It could be, I think since this is Worldcon, we're going to say that we're mostly focused on speculative fiction. So anything that
Oh,
falls into speculative fiction is
Ulysses.
Ulysses.
That was my first guess.
Because that's how I felt. So yeah.
With
short
listening to
time
that
I read it-
review or reading
At the short
Ulysses.
time of reading that at school, pushing a
Could be
rock up the
Moby
hill and having
Dick.
it crush back down on me.
Yeah, it could be Moby Dick. It's like, that is kind of a slog, isn't it?
I've got some bad reviews for Moby Dick. I'll share those later.
Oh, cool. Awesome. Yeah, I think Moby Dick, I personally feel that Moby Dick does fall into speculative fiction. It's kind of a fantasy. So if we allow that whales don't have the preternatural intelligence that one seems to have. So or maybe they do. Man, is it natural history or is it speculative fiction? You be the judge. Okay. I'm gonna pick another one at random. Oh, this is a good one. This is a dangerous book. It made me consider both suicide and mass homicides. And it is definitely not suitable for children. Okay.
Please
or
be
fake?
real.
Yeah,
Please
I'm
be
not
real.
switching horses. It's real.
Yeah.
Okay. Do we
Real.
vote?
Real.
Okay, it is real. It is real. Now, can you guess what book it's for?
Name of the Wind.
You were straight in there.
I'm not saying it's terrible. I'm saying that's the kind of thing I would expect from someone who goes into it and thinking it's one thing and getting something completely different. And it's a big book.
That is not Name of the Wind. Do I have any other
Yeah.
guesses?
Yeah, I'm
I
gonna
think
say
it-
some Wheel of
No,
Time.
no, because he took my guess.
I'm
That's
struggling
funny.
with the suicide plus homicide bit on that one. Clearly, I haven't
Yeah.
read something that's crossing the both. That's where I'm kind of like, oh, that's a different one.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
I will I'm gonna so no more
What is
it
that
was
about, Misery?
It was actually
Are-
Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone.
Oh my God, I'm actually looking at that on my shelf and was going to say Harry Potter, and I was like, no, maybe not.
Yeah, it's like, really suicide?
Yeah,
Seriously?
that's a bit hardcore for Harry
That
Potter.
actually
It's
comes
hard.
up a lot.
It's hardcore.
This
and
children's
not
book
suitable
made
for
me want to
children.
murder people.
It's
It's
like,
also angry by
was it
Dr.
one of
Zeus
those like religious people that didn't like Harry
Occultists?
Potter because of the
Maybe.
the
Could
magic?
be.
But I
Yeah.
think the suicide and homicide might be kind of against your religion too, I would think. So
Kind of thought so.
it's just a wild guess there. Okay, one more, and then we're gonna try something else, and we'll come back to this later. So one more. This book 100% ripped off The Matrix. the Wachowskis should sue. Real or fake?
That's real, I think. That sounds really familiar.
I'm going to say fake.
Yeah, it's. I want to say real because it sounds familiar too.
I was going to go with fake. I'm going to sit on the same side as Alan there.
It's a split decision. Well, it's fake. It's fake.
Oh.
But can you guess? It is a fake review of a real book. Can you guess the book?
Off to be the wizard.
Going to say that's got to come back to Stephen Quenby. If you think you've heard it, which one for?
Any other guesses?
Not a clue.
Nope. I think actually the person nailed it. Neuromancer by William Gibson.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It's like the original cyberpunk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If your first viewing of any kind of cyberpunk is the Matrix, then I guess that you would think anything that came before it was ripping it off.
Yeah.
Which is a weird way of looking at it, but yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of like for years my husband had thought that and okay, this is showing our age. But for years he had thought that Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure was a ripoff of Wayne's World. And I was like, no, honey, it's the other way around. Bill and Ted came first and then Wayne's World. So, and you British people have no idea what the hell I'm talking about. So, you're also too young, probably. So never mind.
No, I love Bill and Ted and Wayne's World. Saw them in the cinema.
All right, okay. So
yeah, I grew up watching that. I saw Wayne's World at the movie theater.
Yeah. I saw both Bill and Ted's at the cinema. They're great.
We're not worthy.
All right. Okay. So so let's get serious a little bit as authors, and let's talk about what's the value of 1-star reviews. Do you think what do you think?
Filtering out the people who shouldn't be reading your book. I quite often look at 1-star reviews on purpose to see what they didn't like in order to see whether I'm going to like it.
Yeah, I think I agree 100%. That is what is really great about 1-star reviews, is it just like diverts people that aren't going to like it away.
Yeah.
So.
I had a 1-star review that simply said something like it was too woke or something like that. And I've had people contact me saying they saw that review and were like, I want to read this book. So 1-star reviews tend to be, in my opinion, by people who either have an axe to grind or they're angry at something to do with you or your success or the book or or wokeness or whatever the hell that is. So I think 1-star reviews tend to be, if you read a 1-star review and you're like, this guy is insane, book's probably something you'd like to read.
Yeah, I think it's good.
I think too they're strangely encouraging, and by that I mean when you get one, it's very discouraging, and you feel like you don't belong, you have imposter syndrome, and then you go look at. I mean, I've got one here for Hamlet. I've got them for Tale of Two Cities, some of the greatest things ever written, and you realize there's just no pleasing everyone. It cannot be done. And if Shakespeare's going to get 1-star reviews, and if Dickens is going to get 1-star reviews, then I can certainly survive a 1-star review or two.
Yeah.
Quenby,
Lord of the Rings has some fabulous 1-star reviews.
Yes. Quenby, I think you were going to say something.
I think the 1-star reviews, I think what I love about them is that a lot of the times 5-star reviews will give more vague praise. This book was wonderful. It was fantastic. The writing was great, but it doesn't give you any details. The 1-star reviews tend to be more like, I didn't like it because there was language, there was sex, there was violence, it'll name specific things. So then you can parse through them and go, oh, but I like language and sex and violence. So I think then I will check out this book. Or something. There's always more detail, I think, in the lower reviews, because they will intentionally pick out the specific things that they didn't like, which then will show you exactly what is going on in a book. And then you can make a clearer decision on whether or not you want to read that book by the complaints of other people.
I think
Absolutely.
the only exception is the 1-star rating with no review.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, you know, I hate those.
And the people who say things like my book was late.
Yes.
1 star. Book didn't get delivered on time. Like that has nothing to do with the author. You're just a
Packaging got
person.
wet.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Like,
You're punishing the author for something that is beyond their control.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
I
the
know.
realm of the 1-star review.
Yes. On the other hand, nobody ever gives a 5-star review. The pages were luxurious. You know?
I'd like to get one of those. This was the nicest type font I've ever seen. What,
Yes.
5 stars?
The greatest binding in the history of bookery.
Yeah.
Yes. Every bit of glue on the spine was perfectly aligned.
I've had this
See,
book
now
for
weirdly, I ordered a book from Amazon a few weeks ago, and I don't know where they had it stored, but it came smelling so strongly of like perfume or scented something, as if they were sending out scented books. And I thought, you know, if I really was into scented books, this would get a 5-star review. My book smells like a scented candle. I don't know where they had this in the warehouse, but it was like, I mean, I had it in my purse, and my whole purse just smelled like some kind of like scented candle for weeks. It was, I don't know.
That's
Was it
dangerous.
a good
Romance,
smell?
that's the
I hope it was a
question.
good
Like
smell.
perfumed envelope romance type job.
Yeah, that's dangerous, because the odors associated with my stories would not be pleasant.
I can vouch for that. So yeah, that would not be pleasant. But that would be that's an interesting marketing idea though for books, is like the scratch and sniff on the pages. So the smell of the sea.
The battle scenes would be horrific.
Oh my God. Yeah, especially your battle scenes, Alan. Oh my God. Ugh.
Well,
So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think that's I as somebody who has gotten her fair share of 1-star reviews for books, I think that they are very market shaping, because I think if you get like a flurry of 1-star reviews early on, it does kind of drive people away who are not going to like the things that the people that gave the 1-star reviews disliked. So, you know, my first book has a lot of addresses some difficult subjects, and people that don't want to deal with that don't want to read the book, and that's fine. So there's been, you know, it definitely has been market shaping for me, and that's why, you know, I don't get too bummed out about those, because the trend is in the right
we live
direction.
in this whole trigger warning era now, don't we?
Yes. Yeah.
You know, and if you want to read fantasy, maybe you know, maybe read Alice in Wonderland or something, because I don't feel like we're evolving in a direction where we're going to make trigger warning people happy.
I don't know. You know, there is an adult like threatening a child with bodily harm in Alice in Wonderland.
I was going to say, surely there's animal cruelty as well.
Oh yeah. Okay, I take it back. I would say I stand corrected, but I'm sitting. So
this 1-star. There's drug abuse in this book. Adults are giving children bad substances. So, I think it's time for more of our game here. So let's see. Okay, wait, speaking of, here's one. Hang on a second. I cannot grasp my mind around this book and why people are so hyped about it. It tells a story of a child who should be at school, but instead is traveling the world back and forth, often accompanied by a dangerous predator. Everyone, for some reason, talks to imaginary beings, and on top of all these shenanigans, all of them are stoked about dust for some reason. And who the heck who uses an old-timey compass in today's world where Google Maps exist? Real or fake?
I know the book.
I know the book, so I could go. Yeah, I know the book. Whether it's a real review or not, I don't know. It's so close to the mark.
I'm going to say fake.
I got to vote for
I'm going to say
fake.
fake. Yeah,
I'm going to say
for
fake,
this one.
but I still feel like I'm confident on the book.
Quenby.
I'm
Real
going
or
to say
fake?
real just so that it has a vote for real.
Okay, it was indeed fake, and there seems to be consensus on the book, which is
Golden
survey
Compass?
says.
Golden
Yeah.
Compass.
Yeah. The team member who supplied this review called it Northern Lights, which I guess is what it's called in Europe and England. And I was like, this sounds like the Golden Compass. What the heck is Northern Lights? And I had to look it up, and like, oh, it's the same thing. It's just a different title, like Philosopher's Stone versus Sorcerer's Stone. So anyway, so that's fun. Let's see. I want to get another one here. I'm all, and by the way, now my pages are all mixed up, so I'm not really sure anymore. What's okay? I'm losing my categories. So, okay, here's one. Okay, I got to the middle of book 5 and I just can't take it anymore. My BFF suggested this series to me, and I usually think pretty highly of his suggestions, but these books are just plain god-awful. No, my complaint is not that they are too long or too long-winded, although they are both, or that they are horribly edited, although they are that too. And as a proofreader, I would know. My complaint is the simple fact that this author cannot write his way out of a paper bag. The first book is amiable enough, but that's about the best praise I can give it. After that, it's a mind-numbing funeral dirge to mediocrity.
Real, because they mentioned that they're a proofreader, and real reviewers mention how much they're either an author themselves. As an author myself, so yeah, real, because
real.
I want to say real.
Yep, you're correct. It is real, and I think you guys have it. What's it for?
Is it the Wheel of Time?
Wheel of Time.
Yeah. It's actually specifically for the Eye of the World, but I think it's for the whole series since they talk about.
So they got up to book 5. Yeah.
They got to book 5 and then decided to go back and leave this review. So they got as far as book 5. Again,
I mean, to be fair, I think they got further than I did. I think I made it to book 4 and then I had to stop. I think that was about how far I made it.
That's where I got to, book 4.
You beat me. I got about 1 chapter in. And
I just read the whole lot.
I've read the whole lot too. And I fully agree that I actually loved, I think books 4 and 5 were my favorite out of the series, but so I was all in up to that point, and then I kept going, and then
there was a book with only 3 points of view, and then the other 3 points of view were in the other book, and they still only covered 3 days.
Yes. Yeah, there were like three books that covered like 3 days, and one of them was like ended right in the middle of a thing they were doing that was really important, and it's like, what? Why are we doing this? It got to be, and I will say I learned a lot from those books. I know how to wash a shirt if you don't have a washing machine. There were about 3 or 4 pages devoted to the laundering of a white shirt.
I thought you were going to talk about learning about like writing or pacing or what to do or what not to do. And you're like, no, it's laundry. I learned about laundry.
Laundry. There's also a lot of information about fletching and
Right.
so if you, as like a survival guide in medieval times, I think they're useful. By the way, I love the Wheel of Time. So I wouldn't have read
I did
the whole
enjoy it.
thing.
I didn't want to finish it, but by that point, to be fair, Brandon Sanderson was also writing them as well.
Yes,
So they did kind of pick up the pace for the last
they
three.
did. They
And
picked
he
up the
started killing
pace
all the superfluous characters, so you actually got back to the plot.
a
Well,
little
there's
bit. Yeah.
there's the other thing too that happens where you start reading a book and you give up on it, and then you come back and you give up and you come back. I mean, I did that with Malazan, and I eventually became addicted and went through the whole series, but it took me over a year to finish book one.
I confess I've never attempted Malazan, even though it seems like the kind of thing that I would like, but it's something I've never
I
gotten
read
to.
the first one, and it was so forgettable that I put it down and didn't bother picking it back up again, and didn't bother carrying on with the series. And then at some point, several years later, I picked it up because all this hype, and thought, oh, I ought to try and read this. Then read it and realized I had already read it. I got to
Oh.
book 5 before I decided I actually wanted to go and read something I wanted to read. So I stopped reading it.
That's
I tried book 1 about, I don't know, 4 times, and gradually got further and further through each time, having forgotten what I'd read the first time. And in the end, I just kind of like, no, people say that the second book is a good one, and they're true. The second book is much better than the first book. But Garden of the Moon was really hard work.
Yeah.
I think you can tell between books 1 and 2 that he became a much better writer, because they're written like 15 years apart or something. But yeah, book 1 was hard going.
Well, here's a question about that I'm thinking about while everyone's talking about these series. We have these epic series. They're all very, very beloved. We have like Name of the Wind, and we have Wheel of Time, and all of this. I'm wondering how many really poor reviews of these series come from them being hyped up so much that, like, you must read Name of the Wind, you must read Malazan, and then you pick it up after hearing people tell you must read this, it changed my life, it changed the world, and you're thinking it's and so you wonder then how many of these poor reviews are it's fine, it's okay,
yes.
or
Yeah.
if that hype actually drives down our enjoyment of it and other people's enjoyment of these books.
As a matter of fact, I have, for your enjoyment. I want to know what book everyone here was reading that they consistently rated 5 stars and proclaimed to be one of the greatest books they've ever read, because I would very much love to read that book. I would love to have read it instead of this formulaic, masturbatory, wish fulfillment piece of crap.
Is that the Name of the Wind?
Ding, 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 ding. Yes.
Oh God. The thing is, I don't hate the book, but I completely understand where you come from, because everyone told me how amazing it was and how it would change my life and how it was one of the greatest pieces of literature ever written. And I read it and went, it's an all right romance book. And it's an all right romance book. But it didn't make me go, this is the greatest piece of literature I've ever read. And I think a lot of people who've given it negative reviews have gone in being told this is what fantasy is. This is the greatest book ever written on fantasy. And they've gone, is it? Really?
Yeah.
And especially if they're not normally fantasy readers who've been told this is the book to read. Any book that you're told that about could really throw you sideways if it's your first foray in.
At all. It's not a bad book. It's just, I think the level of hype for it and the expectation completely overrode what it is.
That's always the danger with things, when people tell you, this is the greatest thing ever, and it's sort of like my husband and I, we have a bad habit of taking people to restaurants that we love and it's always a bad night at that restaurant when we bring guests, with us. It's like, oh, come to our favorite restaurant. We love it so much. You'll just die for the food there, and the service is wonderful. And then, there's like something happens. The chef is sick that night, and the substitute has burned the food, or the waiter is whatever. Something always happens, and people are like, eh. and it's so disappointing, because you love something so much and you want your friends to love it too, and then it just doesn't work out in a way that everybody agrees with you, and that's always very sad.
Yeah, and that's how I felt about when I read The Name of the Wind. I thought it was perfectly okay, but my friends telling me it was amazing, and I'm like, I didn't get it. However, Red Rising, I had completely the opposite. People told me it was amazing. I read it, and I was like, this is brilliant. So it can work both ways, I guess.
So someone in the Q&A was asking what the name of the first book was, and that was The Name of the Wind. They didn't know what book we were talking about.
Yes, it was The Name of the Wind. Thanks, Alan, for picking that up. So, okay, and thanks for reminding me too about the Q&A. So again, also feel free, audience, to feel free to type in your questions to the Q&A. We're keeping an eye there. So, all right. So I'm gonna ask. We may or may not have much to discuss here. I don't know, but I want to talk about author to author. Sometimes, authors can get into tiffs with each other, and there have been some famous literary ones over the years. And my favorite one in the fantasy science fiction world is the tiff between Ursula Le Guin and sorry, I'm having another one of my senior moments here, which I tend to do, so bear with me. Kazuo Ishiguro, he wrote The Buried Giant, and if you don't know who he is, he's known as a literary author, and he did not he kind of made some comments poo-pooing fantasy, and Ursula Le Guin didn't take too well to that. So, and she kind of wrote a very scathing review of his book. So I'm just wondering if you guys have any thoughts on these historical literary battles from times past, or have anything to add to this discussion.
It reminds me of Scorsese poo-pooing Marvel Comics movies. I mean, there are a lot of people like myself who love comic books and are very invested in the stories, and I also love Scorsese work, but I don't see why he needs to, millions of people love, although I've probably done that in the course of this broadcast.
That's true. But I think with Scorsese, that's a really great example of is it really, everybody's got an opinion, and it's fine if that's not, your choice. But I do find it distressing how people dismiss movies that have superheroes in them, or whatever, merely for the fact that there's something supernatural happening in the
they're escapists.
That they're dismiss them as being escapist, whereas they can be just as moving or even complex as any other form of storytelling. Why does it have to be real in order to be good? Is the question. I think and I'm talking too much. So Steve, what are your thoughts?
On the movie side of things, I think that just because it's about superheroes doesn't mean it doesn't have an impact or isn't emotional. Or, you know, I went to the one of the first showings of Avengers Infinity War. People were crying at the end of that film. And I went to one of the first showings of Endgame, and it's one of the few films I've ever been in when everyone stood and applauded. And that's the impact they have on people. You know, Logan is an amazing film that probably should have had the stars nominated for Oscars for their performances in it. But it's a superhero film about a guy who has claws and can heal. But it's definitely not a superhero film in the same way that Spider-Man is. Anyway, I can rant about that for a really long time because they can both exist in the same world. I don't see why there has to be choice between Scorsese films or Marvel films. Or it's the same as when I grew up and people were either DC or Marvel, and they still are, or Sega and Nintendo.
Marvel.
It doesn't matter. Just enjoy what you want and let other people enjoy what they want, and don't whine about it. As for the literary arguments, everything involving Hemingway, because he just seemed to argue with everybody all the time, and I'm sure he was a very nice man, but he did seem to just absolutely get on with no one, and it's great.
It is fun to read those like the old letters, and they're sniping at each other, and you know, you're glad you weren't at the target of that, maybe.
I mean,
Or
C.S.
Shaw
Lewis,
ripping on Shakespeare.
C.S. Lewis and J.R. Tolkien. Friends but rivals. I mean, that's a very famous one.
Yeah.
Yes, and I think Tolkien would get after C.S. Lewis for writing allegory, and you know, would poo-poo that. So I always thought that was kind of interesting, and you know, C.S. Lewis, the C.S. Lewis books are, I guess they are allegorical, but as somebody who did not have a religious upbringing and only like barely skimmed you know, the texts of Christianity myself, it's like I didn't read those as an allegory at all. I read them as pure fantasy. So
yeah, I was the same.
So was I. It was only later on that I suddenly went, oh.
Whoa, the lion is Jesus.
Yeah, it was that moment of, oh, okay, I missed that one.
All right, should we do another review? So let's see. I'm gonna sort of pick one at random here. Okay, here's one. I get that this is hilarious and I get that this is hilarious and delightful for some people, but I am not one of them. Thank God it was mercifully short. He really wrote an entire series of this crap? British humor, man. I just don't get it.
I know what that is.
That's real.
I feel like that's real.
Yeah,
real.
Yeah, it's real. And what's the book?
Discworld.
Yeah, that's just what I was going to say.
It's not one of
I was
those.
going to say.
That's close, but it's not.
I was going to say Hitchhikers.
Is it
Ding,
Hitchhiker?
ding, ding. Hitchhikers.
I was going to say Hitchhikers.
Oh. That one,
Win.
I adore that series. It's a masterpiece. I'm not gonna.
Me too.
I knew as soon as they said the short and then the British humor, I was like, Hitchhikers. I read those in like an afternoon. Short and British humor. Yes, I knew it.
Yeah.
Well,
All
I think
right.
we could do with more British humor, not less.
Yes. Oh, here's a good one. And by the way, in the list that was compiled by our Glasgow 2024 team members, there are some books that showed up a couple of times. So we were talking about famous books with lots of bad reviews. There's a few on here. So here's one, and you'll probably guess this one pretty easily. 1 star for the worms. I wish would have just eaten everyone.
Okay. Dead giveaway.
We know the book.
Okay, is that real or fake?
Fake.
I'm gonna say fake, but I bet obviously
I'm
know
going
what
to
the
say
book
fake, but I
is.
wish it was real because that's
I'm
all.
going to be
Yeah.
the outlier and say it's real.
That was a
Oh,
real
no.
one. That was real.
Oh,
Amazing.
oh.
No,
Amazing.
no.
That's a
Brilliant.
good one.
Yes, sometimes, when you really hate something. So,
You don't have any
Okay.
Watership Down reviews, do you?
no, I don't.
One of my
So
favorites.
you can eliminate that. So, one of your favorite books, or do you have Alan, you actually had collected some
I do.
reviews yourself.
No, Watership Down is one of my favorite books, but I've got all right, so let's see if you can guess this one. This is real, so I'm not going to do it, but what's the book? This book is wretched, painful to a degree I've never before experienced. I've read books that put me to sleep, books I found impossibly dull, books I found too stupid for words, but I have never hated a book so much in my life. And then the person says, why should I care if these characters make themselves miserable through their own choices and then spend the rest of the book whining and complaining about how pathetic their lives are? I hadn't realized just how much I loathed them until halfway through the book when a major character died, and all I could think was, thank God, thank God.
Okay, that I'm going to say that there are not a lot of
It's not
content
fantasy.
clues.
This is not fantasy. It's
Not fantasy.
romantic literature.
Oh,
It's a classic of romantic literature.
Is
sorry.
it Wuthering Heights?
It is.
Oh.
Wow.
I was thinking
Right,
miserable and somebody dies halfway through.
here's a really short one. Sadism. That's why they made you read this in school. Someone wanted you to jump off a bridge. This book is mostly meandering idiocy and loosely tied together story about a man watching another man obsessed with a whale. Yeah, so Moby Dick. Yeah. Here's one for George R. R. Martin. Song of Ice and Fire. I had high expectations for this book, and it sucked. Not just a little bit, but a lot. I am a longtime fan of Tolkien and the fantasy genre in particular. I laughed out loud when I saw reviews comparing Martin to Tolkien. Here's one for Hamlet. Boring, so boring. Oh my God. Then there's one for David Copperfield. This is a book for elite intellectuals. I may be a college graduate, but I would have flunked out reading this book and its elk. I don't know. It's elk.
It's elk.
Yeah.
Elk.
And even Stephen King gets, this is for The Cell. This novel read like a Bush League newbie wannabe writer. So unlike Stephen King. The story was disjointed, lacked any emotional tie-in for the reader, and was a bore fest. From one of the best writers in the last 30 years, this is my opinion, his very worst effort ever. This book is so awful, I'm willing to join a class action lawsuit with anyone else who wants to try to get their money back.
oh my God.
Wow.
Which book
Anyway.
was that?
Yeah,
That is a level of pettiness.
That's Stephen
to...
King's book, The Cell. Yeah. Some of these one-star review writers should be authors themselves.
Yes.
Yeah, some of
Yeah.
them wish they were.
Yeah,
That's the thing,
true
isn't it?
too.
Yeah. It is.
I've got one here
Okay.
just to wind. This is obviously can be summarized as walking, 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 bit of fighting with orcs, walking, 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 anguish, walking, 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 bit more fighting with orcs, walking, walking, walking.
That's gotta be okay. I'm the moderator. I shouldn't talk. You guys guess. What is it?
Orcs.
Lord of the Rings.
Which one was it? A
Lord of the
specific one though?
No, it is the first, I believe.
Oh,
It's
really?
just
Okay.
the Lord of, yeah, just
Yeah.
yeah.
Because the two towers can be described that way too. So, or maybe that's more running. Fight with
It's
orcs.
probably. I just came across that and I was like, I mean, I'm sure if there's an equivalent one out there for braid tugging for Wheel of Time.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. That I think that was the biggest problem I think with my issue with Wheel of Time is so much walking. So but you know, it's kind of the nature of the beast with epic fantasy. They're traveling books, and sometimes it can take a while for people to get from A to B. So
And
Well,
I
if you're
think
building a world.
I think that's where fantasy computer games have learned the lesson. You know, nobody wants to be online for half an hour just walking. So they've come up with all kinds of ways for you to get there faster.
Fast travel.
Yeah,
Fast travel should be in books. That would make things so much easier. Just end of chapter 1, you're in this chapter, this part of the world. Beginning of chapter 2, they're now somewhere else.
Well, it is in the Feist books. There are instances where they go through a portal or whatnot. And I like that because the travel stuff can be really boring. I agree.
I think unless the travel stuff's going to add to the story, I don't see why you can't cut that bit out anyway.
Yeah, unless the traveling is the book. Because there are obviously
Exactly.
fantasy books where the traveling is the story.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
I
then
think
our
so, yeah.
attention span has evolved too. I mean, you read The Hobbit or Tale of Two Cities for that matter, and there's lots and lots of it's an information dump, you know, lots of exposition, and then you finally start getting to the action. Whereas nowadays, a lot of books start right in the middle of the action, and you slowly figure out what's going on as you read.
But I think you're right there, and that impacts people's perceptions of what they're reading. So if they're reading a lot of modern books, which go straight into the action, and they look back at something else that's older or epic, and they have to have the patience to wait for the world building, for the story to be set up,
right,
then that could quite easily lead to a disconnect in what they think they expect from fantasy and what's actually out there.
I think you can have that
review.
issue too with a lot of classic novels where if they were written in a serial format where, you know, every week there would be another entry, and so the story would keep going and going, and so the author was purposely writing a certain way because that's how it was intended to be sold, to, you know, to spread this out. So if you read it now condensed into a book and you think, why is this so sprawling? Why can't this author get to the point? But that's how that story was meant to be told at that time, to keep readers going week after week. Oh, what's going to happen in the next chapter? Well, we won't find out till next week's newspaper. So
and that tends to lead to repetition as well, doesn't it? You're right.
Yes. Yeah.
It
And that's
also.
also.
Go ahead, Steve. No, go ahead.
And that's also with the world building. In fact, in that way, with where it's serialized, you want your world building at the front because this is the world that the story's taking place in. In these days, in modern novels, world building isn't usually slap bang in the middle front of the book because that's not what someone wants to read. It's drip fed through the first quarter, half of the book, even. And the style of writing now is more immediate because stuff is built around what's happening, whereas some of the stuff back then was here's what's building, and now we're going to put what's happening, and it's done the other way around now, more often than not.
It's as if we spread out the phrase "once upon a time" throughout the entire book. You know, usually "once upon a time" is followed by "there was a man" and blah 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 and the action, but we put the "once upon a time" throughout the story.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's coherent.
It definitely.
No, it
I think I agree that it's something about how writing styles have changed and what readers are used to has changed. And you know, another thing is that in the 19th century, for instance, authors were paid by the word, and so you know, so wordiness was a virtue, and that's if you're not used to reading that sort of voluble style like for instance, Moby Dick, the first sentence is like a full like paragraph of, it's almost 200 words. It's all on its own. It can be, I think, intimidating to younger readers or readers who haven't been like had a chance to get used to that kind of reading. And it can be definitely harder to get into books, and you know, if you're used to like hitting the ground running with the action, or with something like dramatic happening in the first chapter, versus the sort of Fellowship of the Ring style of like easing you into the story. So you know, it's part of I think how the world changed and our perceptions have changed about things. And that's something where I think it's sort of miraculous in some ways that some of these older writers have really endured. And you know, people still find them enjoyable, or are able to like go in and just like find a way to love this language that they're not, that, you know, that they maybe weren't exposed to earlier in life. So
I think movies have changed how we write books as well, because you would never go into a film of Lord of the Rings if it was written word for word how it is in the book, because you'd be sat there for the first 45 minutes of the film going, is anything going to happen at any point in this film? And it would be impossible to film. There would be literally no urgency at all. And I think film wants you to pay attention now, thank you, and then it goes. And I think books have started to, or not started to, but they've been doing it for a long time. They've taken that sort of urgency from the movie and comic books as well, and they've used it to start books in the same way and going forward. So I think writers now, especially now, the modern fantasy writer, the modern writer in general, they have to have been influenced by film if they've paid any attention to film in the last 60 years, because of how influential they are on all of us.
Well, how many books have you seen praised? Especially, you'll see fantasy books where it'd be like, oh, it reads like a movie. You know, it feels like I'm watching and I read this book, and you know, and that's and not that that's a bad thing, but it makes you feel like, well, then I have to write a book like that to get the audiences to pay attention. I have to write it like boom, boom, boom. I have to write it like a movie.
I think that's why they like a lot of people like that first explosive chapter in a book, and then you bring it back and you slow it down and you start to put details, and they can't really do that in film quite as much, because once you've started, you have to keep going with the story. You can't really take half an hour to just have people to have a nice sit down and a chat and build the world. They're doing it on the fly, so to speak. But with books, you can do that. You can have a big explosive battle in chapter 1, and then chapter 2 is the fallout, and then chapter 3 and 4 and 5 are the fallout, and then going from there. So I think, in a way, we sort of like get the best of both worlds. We get to have that kind of being influenced by things and placing it in our own work. And you obviously don't have to, but I think there is an influence there. There is a link.
Yeah, and that expectation of high speed, fast impact, fast stuff, plus the social media side of things, and whether we like it or not, people like to have their opinions seen. They like to have them read. They want people commenting on them. They want to write controversial stuff. And authors retweeting occasionally 1-star reviews, that person's like, hey, they're writing my vitriol out to the world. Look at that.
Yeah, I think there's some of that as well. People like clicks or clout or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
I think too that I mean, I can't speak for you all, but I suspect any of us would be happy to have the option picked up on our novels for screenplay development, to be turned into a teleseries or a movie. And that's never far from my mind, because my background is in the theater, and sometimes my stories are really dialogue heavy, but I do think about the cinematic element as I'm writing, and so that's intentional too.
Yes. Okay, I'm gonna find another review. So okay, here's one. It's just so, and it kind of, this sort of fits with what you were just saying. It's just so long. I don't care what they had for breakfast or what the flowers smelled like. Just get to the point already. It's just a big travelogue, really. Yawn. Okay, so real or fake?
Fake.
Fake.
It could be real. Talking about epic fantasies and journeys.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say real.
Okay, it was fake. You're right. It was fake. Now, what book was it?
The Hobbit.
Ding, 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 ding.
There and back again.
That's right.
Hey,
You
I don't
know,
know if the audience is keeping score, but I think I'm leading in the real and fake.
I confess, as moderator, I have not been keeping score. So, and there are not actually going to be any prizes, I'm afraid. I'm sorry to say.
Oh.
And so, anyway, you know, I would like to, if the audience has any reviews that they want to post in the Q&A or the chat, then I'm happy to read them on screen. So,
As long as they're not of our books.
yeah, exactly. Okay, I'm actually trying. Oh, here, this one gave me a chuckle. This version is not S. Morgenstern's classic tale, etc., etc. It's the book plus prattling commentary from the screenplay writer. I was so disappointed. I stopped reading about 20 pages in and will have to find a different version, the real one, to continue. The author's incessant need to insert his commentary into an existing novel is awful.
I think that's a trap.
It's
I
a
feel like
trap.
it's fake, but I'm going to say it's real.
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 Yeah, real. Couldn't
That
tell you
one
the
was
book.
actually fake.
Ah!
And what book is it? I think it's probably obvious.
Princess
but-
Bride.
Yeah.
Yeah, Princess Bride, because the Morgenstern.
Yeah, I should have redacted that one out because that kind of gave it away, didn't it? So, oh, okay. Here's another one that's amusing. Ugh, 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 ugh. I didn't care for this series at all. The bad guy is so bad, stomping around, twirling his virtual snidely whiplash mustache, sneering and jeering, and literally kicking puppies. And yet the supposed wise mentor in the book keeps insisting mysteriously that there is more to him than meets the eye. Well, guess what? There isn't. He's just as bad as he seems, and that pretty much saves you the trouble of reading the whole book right there. Real or fake?
Real.
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 I spoke too soon about my record. I'm going to go down the tubes here. I'm going to say real too, just so I can join the party.
We're all going down together.
That one. Okay, I'm going to confess. I've kind of mixed up my pages here. That one is real. And the one of Princess Bride was also real. So I lied when I said it was fake. So anyway, that one is real. What's the book?
Mentor, evil back. I mean, it could be my
Puppy
book,
kicking.
But,
Puppy kicking.
No, not a clue.
That is Assassin's Apprentice.
Oh my word!
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yep,
Wow.
Assassin's Apprentice. So, which now that I know, I've never read that book, even though it's been on my list forever. So now that I know there's puppy kicking in it, though, I don't know. Do I really want to read it if there's puppy kicking?
It depends on the breed.
Okay, here's another one. It's very short, and it might trip you up. So it goes, no thank you, dust collector. Real or fake?
I feel like
Fake.
I've seen that one actually.
Fake. I'm gonna go with fake.
I know we've had 2 reels in a row, but I'm gonna go with real because I've definitely seen a few that look like that. Whether it's for the same book or not, I don't know.
Quenby, you have an opinion?
I don't want to vote. We'll just say fake.
Okay, Alan?
I said fake, yeah.
Oh, you did. Okay, that one was real. And now, what's the book?
Could be anything.
It could.
Literally could be anything. I've seen one very much a bit like that for Mary Gentle's Ash Secret Histories when I was looking for reviews for today as well. I found one that was almost as vitriolic as the one that Quenby mentioned earlier, where they literally took apart chapters line by line by line.
For the Secret History?
Yeah.
Wow. I'd be curious. I love that series, so I'd really interested to see that. Pass that along to me. Oh.
But I feel like I've seen some like that just for that one recently. It doesn't mean it's that one. It could be anything.
Well, okay. Here's a hint. Dust could be associated with the title, and it is not by Philip Pullman. Dust very loosely associated with the title.
Well, back to the Golden Compass again, are we?
Yeah, but again, I said not by Philip Pullman.
Oh,
so
yeah.
There's a clue.
Dune. Because
Dracula?
it's sand.
That's a good guess. It's actually The Sandman by Neil Gaiman. So
Oh. That person has no taste.
that is a perfect example of how it's all in the eye of the beholder. So
It is, but that person
a lot of these are.
Yes. All right. Okay, here's another one. A bunch of people go on a bunch of pilgrimages. Bad stuff happens. Waste of time, abrupt ending, blah, blah, blah.
Real.
Yeah.
I'm going to say real.
Go on.
I'm gonna be the odd man out and say fake just because I don't like the word pilgrimage.
Yeah, I was gonna go with fake, I think, on this one.
Okay, split decision. It is fake. But it is of a real book. So any guesses on the name of the book?
A book
The
about
darkness that-
pilgrimage.
The darkness that comes before.
No.
Oh, is it Station 11? Is that the book about?
No. I can't give you a hint on the book because I've never read it. All right, do we give up? It's Hyperion by Dan Simmons.
Oh.
Okay. Yeah. I
We've-
wouldn't
we've
have got that
got-
in a million years.
We've got one in the chat too from Finn McClellan.
Let me get back to this. So hang on. I've lost my chat.
Yeah, you joke on that one, but I have been knocked down in reviews for having the audacity to use single quotes and British grammar.
Yeah.
I have literally had people state that they are knocking
Yes.
stars off because I am
Yeah.
using British spelling and single quotes.
I had someone email and tell me that colour doesn't have a U in it.
Yeah,
Oh, ouch.
lose stars for having the audacity not to write American English.
I had a review. I had a review that I always think of with naming characters because my main character's name was Regan from Shakespeare, King Lear, the Goneril Regan Cordelia and the Daughters. And the book was set in the early 1800s, and the review said this name was not used in the 1800s. It did not come into common usage until the 1970s in America. And I'm thinking, okay, someone who's only ever watched The Exorcist, thank you for your review of my names. You know?
Well, some people read a lot, but they don't read history. Finn has another one from Watership Down. And much of the things that they mention, rabbits cannot physically do.
I'll tell you what, whoever wrote that review must have a hell of a time watching Disney films.
Oh,
Just,
yes.
must make him put him in his screaming fits.
or SpongeBob SquarePants.
Or SpongeBob
Yes.
should not be talking. Sponges cannot wear pants.
No, sponges
Yeah.
or wear pants for that matter. They don't
There's so many
typically wear
things there.
pants.
Yeah,
I
that's a good
wonder,
one.
you know, I wonder if that reviewer they hated Watership Down for that reason, but they love the Warrior Cat series.
Yeah. Or
I found one
Transformers.
for
Or
a very
Transformers.
beloved author. I found one for a very beloved author who has been mentioned. This book frustrated me no end. Very near the beginning of it, I thought about throwing it across the room because I could not for the life of me follow a conversation on about page 6. I read and reread those pages to no avail. I finished the book because my husband told me it was wonderful and funny and I would really enjoy it. I didn't.
What book is it?
That is The Colour of Magic, Terry Pratchett.
No. Absolutely not.
He's out. Steve's out. He's gonna just throw
Yeah.
the laptop down,
Just-
walk out.
just-
Like that's.
I don't even think The Colour of Magic and Light Fantastic are that good, because and neither did Terry, which so I guess that's okay. But yeah, no, that's just, you don't throw Terry Pratchett books across the room.
Is that
Sacrilege.
divorce material right there?
Yeah.
Good Lord.
Yeah.
You know, you try to get your loved ones to love what you love, and sometimes it just doesn't work out.
The only book I've nearly thrown across the room was because the author did such a good twist that I was so cross with them that I wanted to chuck it.
I've done that, and it was for that reason. Yes. That
That,
was
I
one
think, is a
time.
legitimate reason to throw a book across the room.
I've never thrown a book across the room, although I have thrown controllers across the room on occasion for playing games, but never a book. I did, however, get to the very end of a book and there was a twist with absolutely no build-up at all. It was just one type of book, now there's a twist. And I kind of went, no, done. No, that's it. No, that was just, no, not doing that. But that was on my Kindle, and I probably would have thrown it, to be honest, if it had been on the paperback.
Yeah. It's dangerous
Twist
throwing
like that.
Kindles. You can put a hole in the wall.
Well, we've established they can break glasses, so you know the potential damage they do
Yes.
everywhere else.
Yes.
I would throw an algebra book across the room.
Oh, look what's happened. I can see the attendees list have the audacity to read a Terry Pratchett 1-star, and we just lost 4 people. Sorry. I won't do it again.
That's what you get for reading.
I know,
Terry
I know.
Terry
I
Pratchett
don't
reviews.
agree with
It's
them.
like,
I
we're out
love
of here.
this stuff.
I'm done. So yeah. The oh, we're about to. There's a strange animal
Oh,
coming into the screen.
Oh, who keeps turning into a galaxy?
It's a magic
Rather
cat.
fun.
I'm surprised that hasn't happened to me. I have 2 cats who love to sleep on my keyboard while I'm working.
Oh yeah,
and
that
those
is.
those 4 attendees will have missed that. That's what they've missed. They've missed that cat,
They missed
and they're
the
going to
cat.
regret that forever now.
No, well, they can catch it on YouTube because we are live
Yeah.
streaming in YouTube, and it will be preserved forever on YouTube. So
Not-
the
Thank you for that horrifying thought. Sorry.
Yes, type in the code word cat for a free copy of Anne Justice latest novel.
Well, I don't see any questions from our audience, so this is your last chance, audience, so type your questions in quick if you have any questions for us, for any of our esteemed authors about things that they can pass along, our wisdom, or none on YouTube. Oh, no questions on YouTube. I'm being told by the man in the booth. Oh, by the way, the man in the booth. So this is actually a really good review too that I want to read. So our team member who's running tech, he donated this review of his book. So Dave Green, review of Solitude's Shadow. The author is a woke simp. He writes about women having emotions in battle, and that's the last thing I want to read.
Oh, woke Dave, that's your new nickname. Just so you're aware.
We'll call you WS for short.
Amazing.
So how about that? What about the reviews of books where they just don't like the author's worldview? And those are always charming.
So I had a huge supporter of my series. He was like my #1 fan, but in the final book, I based this idiot bad guy character on Donald Trump, and I never heard from the guy again. So you can offend people, I guess. You can, yeah.
I guess you can, yeah.
In my sci-fi book Black Coat, I wrote it a while ago, and people emailing me saying you based the villain on Boris Johnson, right? And
I was
like,
one of those who messaged you. I
did,
remember
yeah.
messaging you about that.
And I didn't. But if people want to think that it is, then
Timing
I'm
was
perfectly okay
perfect.
with it. They can go right ahead. But I had a few reviews saying that it was woke or that. Not calling me a simp though, so that's nice.
Yeah.
But that it was woke and it was feminist or whatever, and that I clearly hate Boris Johnson. I mean, I'm not a fan or anything, but I didn't, worked out well for everybody but him, I guess.
I hate this book. Women have their own lives in it. 1 star.
Yeah, I had a few of those.
Like the classic ones, isn't it? Women can't wield a sword and all sorts of other things like that you see.
Totally.
Well, it's even broader than that. It's you can't have gay people in fantasy, or people of color in fantasy, and those people just need to be ignored and go away.
They're probably on a list somewhere. Well, they should be on a list somewhere, depending
They should
on
be
what
on a
the reviews
list,
are.
naughty list at least.
Yeah.
Santa.
But yeah, no, there's always going to be that group of people who think that women can't fight, and those people have clearly never been to a martial arts class where there are women fighting and kicking your butt as a man, or seen one, or ever opened their eyes or moved beyond their wherever they sit with their computer. I guess it's a bit sad, and they're easily ignored, hopefully.
If I were fighting a woman with a knife, I'd bet on the woman with the knife.
I do Kali, which is a Philippine martial art with sticks, and I wouldn't want to fight a single one of the women that also do Kali because they will hurt me very badly. My 10-year-old daughter does it as well, and she would hurt me very badly as well, I imagine, because she's got no fear. So yeah,
Good for her.
Isn't it?
All right. Oh, and I forgot to mention, so that the woke sim, that was Dave W.S. Green's In Solitude's Shadow, which is excellent. So I highly recommend it. And I guess actually we should go ahead and wrap up. So I really thank you guys for your time and spending the time with us today, both the panelists and everybody who was watching. It was a lot of fun. I hope that you guys had fun. I know I did. And we had a lot of laughs. And I want to let you know that we are, if you want Glasgow in 2024, it is, first of all, visit the website, glasgow2024.org, to where you can volunteer still to help plan the meeting. And this is all in preparation for Glasgow, the Worldcon, the next Worldcon in Glasgow in 2024, which is why we call it Glasgow 2024. And you can volunteer there. You can find out more information about the meeting. You can also register for the conference, and it's going to be an amazing time. And Glasgow is beautiful, and it'll be August, so it might even be possibly somewhat warm in Scotland during that time.
Possibly. Might also rain, might also snow, might also be delightful. Yeah,
so,
it's Scotland.
So there you go. So pack for all weather. And I want to, if you can get your Glasgow 2024 merch at https www.redbubble.com/people/Glasgow 2024/shop. We will our next panel, I'm going to be moderating again, so that might drive some of you away, or not. I hope not. But anyway, the next panel will be on June 8th, and it will be for fans of Tolkien. And we're very, very excited that we're partnering with the OneRing.net for this panel. So and our wonderful man behind the screen, Dave Green, will also be part of this panel. And so we're going to have a group of like uber experts in Tolkien lore, and it'll be a really, really tremendous and informative. And I can't wait to moderate it, because I'm going to be in a room much like today with people smarter than myself, and that's something I always love to be in. So if you enjoyed this event, please consider volunteering, and we're always looking for enthusiastic people. And just keep your eyes on all of our social media accounts, which are all Glasgow in 2024. So thanks so much for joining us, and I bid you adieu.